Build a mind that ignores the noise. Stoic IronMind discipline. Do you ever notice how easily your mind gets hijacked by noise you didn't choose? Notifications tearing at your attention, opinions invading your thoughts, doubts crawling in like parasites. You say you want clarity, but you live surrounded by mental clutter so loud it drowns out your own voice. Here's the truth you've avoided. A weak mind doesn't get destroyed by chaos. It gets destroyed by distraction. And every time you let external noise decide what you think, feel, or do, you surrender the one thing the Stoics fought harder than anything to protect: inner authority. Marcus Aurelius warned that your mind becomes what it repeatedly allows. If you let noise in, you become noise. If you let chaos in, you become chaos. Viktor Frankl understood that survival begins not in the world, but in the space between stimulus and response. That's where discipline is born. That's where power is forged. And that's exactly where modern people fail. They have information, motivation, self-help, productivity hacks, but no internal silence, no mental toughness, no stoic discipline. They react to everything and control almost nothing. Your mind is not weak because life is hard. Your mind is weak because you keep feeding it every distraction, emotion, and impulse that demands attention. The algorithm pulls you, people drain you, your fears shape you, and the noise inside your head becomes louder than the life in front of you. But the Stoic IronMind doesn't chase silence. It creates it. It cuts through mental chaos with precision. It ignores the noise not by escaping it, but by rising above it with disciplined perception and unbreakable focus. You don't build a strong mind by removing problems. You build a strong mind by removing permission. Permission for noise to rule you. Permission for fear to speak first. Permission for impulses to dictate your direction. A distracted mind is a defeated mind. A disciplined mind is a sovereign one, and sovereignty is exactly what you've been giving away to everything that screams louder than your purpose. This is the truth that cuts. The world isn't getting louder, you're just getting quieter. And today that ends, because from this moment on you will learn to build a mind that ignores the noise. A mind that sees through chaos. A mind that stands still while everything else trembles. A mind forged in discipline, sharpened by awareness, and guided by the cold philosophy that pain is feedback, responsibility is power, and clarity is the ultimate weapon. Now we begin. The mind that breaks first. The mind doesn't collapse because of pressure. It collapses because of exposure. People think they are overwhelmed by life, but what destroys them is the constant drip of meaningless noise that erodes their discipline, one distraction at a time. Noise is not just sound. Noise is anything that blocks perception, anything that distorts your judgment, anything that weakens your inner voice until it becomes silent, leaving you guided only by impulses, anxiety, fear, and external validation. A mind like that isn't broken suddenly. It's broken slowly, invisibly through 1,000 small concessions. Seneca warned that most suffering comes not from events, but from the agitation we allow. You carry the weight of imaginary problems, emotional noise, and mental clutter, built from your own lack of boundaries. You fear disappointing people. You fear missing out. You fear being irrelevant. These fears are noise disguised as responsibility, and every time you choose the noise, you strengthen the chains that keep you mentally weak. There is a reason why modern people cannot focus. Their minds are overstimulated but under-disciplined. They chase novelty to avoid discomfort. They react before they think. They overconsume and underact. Epictetus taught that your attention is the strongest form of power, yet you treat it like it has no value. You hand it to anyone and anything. That is why you feel lost. That is why you feel fragile. That is why your thoughts don't belong to you anymore. Noise has taken over your inner life. Nietzsche understood this weakness long before the digital age. He said that most people cannot hear their own deeper self because they are too busy listening to everything else. A crowd lives inside their head. Your mind becomes a battlefield where every voice except your own is allowed to speak. No wonder you feel split. No wonder you feel confused. You are living inside mental civil war. Noise kills clarity. And without clarity, discipline becomes impossible. You cannot build mental toughness while carrying mental toxins. You cannot build self-mastery while feeding your mind constant distraction. And you cannot live a stoic life while letting every impulse shape your direction. This is the tragic truth. A weak mind mistakes noise for importance. A strong mind sees noise exactly for what it is: a test, a trap, a threat to sovereignty. To build an unbreakable mind, you must first understand what breaks it. Not pain, not adversity, not chaos. The mind breaks when it becomes unable to differentiate what matters from what demands attention. That is the fracture point. That is where people lose themselves, and that is exactly where you will begin to rebuild yourself. The world is not overwhelming. Your filter is broken, and now we fix it. The war against distraction. You are not losing time. You are leaking attention, and every leak weakens your ability to think with clarity, to feel with purpose, and to act with discipline. Distraction is not harmless. Distraction is warfare. It is the enemy that enters your mind disguised as comfort, convenience, or curiosity. You tell yourself you are only checking something quickly. You tell yourself you will get back on track in a moment. But distraction doesn't consume hours. It consumes identity. It erodes your ability to stay with what matters long enough to become someone different. Marcus Aurelius warned that the cost of distraction is life itself. Whatever steals your attention shapes your destiny. Yet you allow noise to dictate your direction, as if your mind were public property. You let other people's urgency interrupt your focus. You let meaningless trends define your thoughts. You let strangers on a screen influence your emotions, and then you wonder why you cannot hear your own judgment. Why your inner voice feels muted, why your sense of direction collapses the moment pressure rises. Nietzsche understood that the modern mind is easily conquered because it rejects boredom. It refuses stillness. It seeks perpetual stimulation. A person who cannot tolerate silence becomes addicted to noise, and an addicted mind cannot be disciplined. You think you are choosing distraction, but distraction is choosing you. It knows your weaknesses. It knows your insecurities. It knows you are afraid of facing your own thoughts without a buffer. Noise becomes your escape from yourself. This is the brutal truth you avoid. Distraction is not an accident. It is the path of least resistance, and the mind always collapses toward the easiest option unless trained otherwise. Epictetus would tell you that every act of attention is a moral decision. Discipline is not about restriction, it is about direction. You choose what enters your mind, you choose what stays, you choose what shapes your identity. But most people choose nothing, they react to everything. And a reactive mind can never become a sovereign mind. Modern people drown in noise because they have forgotten how to guard their perception. You think you need motivation to focus. You think you need energy to concentrate. You think you need inspiration to stay disciplined. But the truth is simpler and harsher. You need boundaries. Without boundaries, your mind becomes a marketplace where every impulse negotiates your attention. And you lose every negotiation because your discipline is weaker than your distractions. There is only one way out of this psychological trap. Build a mind that remains still while the world screams. Build a mind trained not to chase stimulation, but to sustain focus. Build a mind that sees noise and rejects it instantly. Because the difference between a distracted life and a disciplined life is not intelligence. It is not talent. It is not luck. It is attention. and whoever controls your attention controls your fate. The war against distraction is the war for your identity, and right now you are losing. But that is exactly why you will win, because now you finally see the enemy. The myth of multitasking and the disease of constant input. You convince yourself you can handle everything at once. Messages, notifications, tasks, conversations, content, emotions and obligations, all fighting for a place inside your mind. You call it multitasking, but it is nothing more than cognitive fragmentation. A disciplined mind operates like a blade. A distracted mind operates like broken glass, scattered, inefficient, dangerous to itself. When you divide your attention, you divide your power, and a divided mind becomes incapable of depth, clarity, or sustained focus. The ancient Stoics understood something modern psychology is just now rediscovering. The mind is not built to process every stimulus at equal priority. It is built to choose. It is built to filter. It is built to ignore. Marcus Aurelius didn't become an emperor of his own mind because he absorbed everything. He became one because he rejected most things. He refused to let noise contaminate judgment. He refused to let triviality infiltrate purpose. He refused to let the world define what deserved his attention. That is why he remained sovereign. That is why he remained unshaken. Multitasking is the modern illusion of progress. You feel busy, but you achieve nothing with depth. You feel active, but you move nowhere with intention. You feel mentally stimulated, but you lose the capacity for real thought. Noise becomes your lifestyle. Input becomes your addiction. You consume constantly to avoid confronting silence, yet silence is the birthplace of clarity, and clarity is the foundation of discipline. Kierkegaard warned that the greatest danger is losing yourself without even noticing. And that is exactly what multitasking does. It doesn't break you in a dramatic collapse. It dissolves you. It erodes your ability to think independently. It keeps you perpetually mentally distracted, emotionally scattered, and philosophically shallow. You mistake constant mental activity for mental strength, but a mind that cannot stop is not strong. It is enslaved. Nietzsche would say that to become who you are, you must first eliminate who you are not. That requires silence. That requires focus. That requires the courage to be alone with your own consciousness without hiding behind constant stimulation. Most people fear boredom because boredom exposes truth. And the truth is that their minds have become too weak to carry the weight of their own thoughts. So they flood themselves with noise to avoid facing themselves. Epictetus taught that discipline begins with the control of impressions. You cannot control your habits if you cannot control your attention. You cannot control your actions if you cannot control your thoughts. You cannot control your path if you cannot control your focus. The myth of multitasking is the myth that you can grow mentally without mastery over perception. But you cannot. You train your mind by training what it ignores. You build inner strength by choosing what does not deserve space inside you. The disciplined mind is not defined by how much it handles. It is defined by how much it rejects. A mind that ignores the noise becomes powerful not because it consumes less, but because it invests more. More depth, more presence, more consciousness, more authority. And that authority is the essence of self-mastery. The world gives you endless noise, but the Stoic IronMind chooses silence. That is where transformation begins, the discipline of filtering reality. Before you can control your mind, you must control what reaches it. People assume discipline begins with action, but discipline begins with filtration. What you allow into your perception determines what grows inside your consciousness. Most minds suffer not because of lack of intelligence, but because of lack of boundaries. They consume every opinion, every impulse, every fragment of emotional noise, and they call it awareness. It is not awareness, it is contamination. A mind that absorbs everything loses the ability to understand anything. Marcus Aurelius taught that the quality of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. But modern people have no control over the source of their thoughts. They scroll endlessly, absorb compulsively, react automatically, and process nothing deeply. Their mental diet is poisonous. Their attention is undisciplined. Their inner world is crowded with the debris of other people's priorities. They treat perception as an open window when it should be a fortified gate. You cannot build mental toughness while leaving your gate unguarded. Psychology calls this cognitive overload. Nietzsche called it the sickness of modernity. Too many impressions, too much stimulation, too little introspection. Your mind becomes saturated with external stimuli until your inner voice becomes unrecognizable. The world shapes your thoughts before you even notice they're no longer your own. You think you have beliefs. You think you have opinions. In truth, you have reactions planted by noise you never learned to reject. Epictetus would tell you that freedom begins with the ability to say no, not to other people, to yourself, to your impulses, to your compulsions, to your automatic desire to engage with everything that demands attention. Without this inner no, you remain a slave to noise. You let algorithms dictate your focus. You let strangers dictate your emotions. You let distractions dictate your time. And time is the currency of consciousness. Whoever controls it controls you. The disciplined mind filters ruthlessly. It interrogates every impression. It asks whether a thought deserves space or whether it is just noise disguised as urgency. It questions whether an emotion is rooted in truth or triggered by impulse. It distinguishes between what matters and what is merely loud. This filtration is not passive. It is active warfare, because noise is persistent. Noise is seductive. Noise speaks with the voice of comfort. But comfort is a liar. Comfort weakens perception until you become blind to your own potential. Viktor Frankl taught that meaning arises in the space between who you are and who you choose to become. But you cannot choose if your mind is crowded with external interference. You cannot hear purpose through chaos. You cannot navigate life when every direction feels urgent. And you cannot build discipline when your attention is pulled apart by the trivial. Noise turns the mind into a battlefield. Filtering turns it into a fortress. This is the turning point. You do not need a quieter world. You need a stronger filter. Strength is not found in escaping noise. Strength is found in ignoring it. Focus is not a miracle, it is a decision. Discipline is not a personality trait, it is a boundary, and boundaries create clarity. Clarity creates direction. Direction creates identity. This is how the Stoic IronMind is built. You decide what enters, you decide what stays, you decide what shapes who you become. And the moment you take control of that, the noise loses its power. The power of deliberate silence. Silence is not the absence of noise. Silence is the presence of control. Most people fear silence because it exposes the truth about their inner world. They discover that their minds are restless, unfocused, and undisciplined. They discover that their thoughts are reactive, not chosen. They discover that internal noise is louder than anything outside. So they run from silence. They drown themselves in stimulation. They fill every empty moment with distraction because emptiness forces confrontation, and confrontation forces transformation. People claim they want focus, yet they avoid the environment where focus is born. Marcus Aurelius understood that silence is the philosopher's forge. It is where judgment becomes sharp, where perception becomes clean, where identity becomes defined. Silence removes cognitive toxins. Silence reveals the weight of unnecessary thoughts. Silence exposes the illusions you've been living under. A mind that avoids silence avoids itself, and a mind that avoids itself can never become powerful. The Stoics did not meditate to relax. They meditated to confront reality without distortion. That confrontation is the foundation of mental strength. Modern psychology calls this intentional disengagement. It is the strategic withdrawal from constant input to restore cognitive authority. Nietzsche saw it as withdrawal from the herd. You cannot find your voice while surrounded by the noise of others. You cannot think independently while borrowing thoughts from the crowd. Silence isolates your consciousness long enough for you to hear the deeper layers of your mind. And those deeper layers are where strength, clarity, and purpose exist. But you cannot access them while running from stillness. The truth you avoid is simple. If you cannot tolerate silence, you cannot master your mind, because silence requires discipline. Silence requires emotional stability. Silence requires the courage to observe your own thoughts without flinching. Most people cannot do this. They fear what they will discover. They fear the responsibility that comes with awareness. They fear the truth that pain, distraction, and weakness have been shaping their lives more than intention. So they stay loud inside. Loudness protects them from themselves. Epictetus warned that the mind is strengthened not by constant action, but by deliberate reflection. Without silence, reflection becomes impossible. Without reflection, growth becomes accidental. Without growth, identity becomes fragile. Silence is where the mind reorganizes itself, where you separate illusion from reality, where you examine your impulses before they become actions. Silence transforms noise into clarity, and clarity into discipline. This is why deliberate silence is not passive, it is active strength. It is the mental equivalent of lifting weight. You push against your own reactivity. You restrain your own impulses. You stay still while your thoughts try to run. And in that stillness, something powerful happens. Your attention becomes sharper. Your emotions become calmer. Your thoughts become intentional. And intention is the root of self-mastery. A disciplined mind does not fear silence. It uses it as a weapon. A mind that ignores the noise is built in the quiet moments when no one is watching, no one is speaking, and nothing is distracting you from yourself. Silence is where you confront your weakness. Silence is where you choose your strength. Silence is where you become unbreakable, training the mind to see only what matters. Your mind is not destroyed by chaos. It is destroyed by relevance blindness. You see everything as equally important, equally urgent, equally deserving of your attention. And a mind that treats noise as signal collapses under its own confusion. The Stoics understood this long before psychology gave it a name. The ability to see clearly is the foundation of discipline. Not vision, not intelligence, not motivation, clarity. Without clarity, every distraction feels meaningful. Every impulse feels necessary. Every interruption feels justified. You become ruled by noise not because noise is powerful, but because you never learn to separate what matters from what merely demands attention. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to narrow perception. He understood that most external events are irrelevant. Most opinions are useless. Most emotional reactions are self-inflicted. And most of what disturbs the mind comes from assumptions, not reality. Modern people live in the opposite direction. They allow every stimulus inside. They treat every thought as truth. They treat every feeling as a command. They treat every distraction as an emergency. This is not awareness. This is mental slavery. A mind that cannot filter collapses under its own excess. Schopenhauer warned that the greatest form of suffering is confusion caused by uncontrolled attention. He saw the mind as a battlefield where clarity is constantly attacked by impulses, desires, fears, and external noise. Without discipline, awareness becomes fragmented. You lose the ability to focus on anything long enough to understand it deeply. Depth disappears, presence disappears, self-mastery disappears. What remains is a mind constantly reacting, constantly spinning, constantly exhausted. Not because life is overwhelming, but because perception is undisciplined. Epictetus taught that the mind becomes strong by training perception to obey intention. You do not become focused by force, you become focused by alignment. You train your eyes to see purpose. You train your thoughts to serve direction. You train your attention to reject the irrelevant instantly. This is not mystical. It is mechanical. Attention is a muscle, and muscles grow when they are challenged, disciplined, and directed. But most people treat their attention like disposable currency, spending it on anything that creates friction. A strong mind protects attention with aggression. A weak mind gives it away cheaply. The truth you avoid is this: noise is not your enemy. Your lack of selection is. You cannot silence the world. You cannot stop people from speaking. You cannot delete every distraction. But you can train perception to ignore everything that is not aligned with who you want to become. This is the essence of Stoic discipline. You create an inner filter so sharp that noise becomes background. You create an inner authority so strong that irrelevant thoughts never grow roots. You create an inner stillness so stable that chaos becomes powerless. Nietzsche believed that greatness comes from the ability to resist temptation. Not temptation of pleasure, but temptation of distraction. A distracted mind cannot create. A distracted mind cannot lead. A distracted mind cannot transform. Strength comes from choosing one thing and cutting everything else. That is what most people cannot do. They crave focus, yet refuse sacrifice. They crave discipline, yet refuse boundaries. They crave clarity, yet feed on noise. To build a mind that ignores the noise, you must train it to perceive only what aligns with your purpose. Narrow your attention, reject the irrelevant, silence impulses, choose direction. Focus is not a state. Focus is a weapon, and only those who train perception can wield it. Your transformation is not in the world, it is in what you choose to see. The Stoic IronMind. The discipline to remain unmoved. There comes a moment in every life when the difference between strength and weakness becomes unmistakable. It is not during crisis, it is not during hardship, it is not during pain, it is during noise. Because noise is the subtle killer. Noise is the invisible thief that steals focus, clarity, purpose, and identity without you noticing. Pain makes you aware. Noise makes you blind. And blindness is far more dangerous than suffering. Most people do not fall because life is merciless. They fall because they are overwhelmed by the quiet, constant erosion of their attention. They drown not in chaos, but in distraction. To build a mind that ignores the noise, you must first build a mind that refuses to react. Reaction is the default of the undisciplined. Reaction is the language of fear. Reaction is the habit of a mind that has lost authority over itself. The Stoics warned that what disturbs you is not the world, but the judgment you attach to it. Noise becomes powerful only when you grant it meaning. Distraction becomes destructive only when you treat it as important. Most people do not suffer from a lack of time. They suffer from a lack of sovereignty. They cannot command their attention, so their attention commands them. Viktor Frankl understood that between every stimulus and every response lies the birthplace of freedom. This space is where identity is forged. This space is where clarity is chosen. This space is where discipline is built. But modern minds have shrunk this space to nothing. They live in reflex. They live in reaction. They live as extensions of whatever stimulus reaches them first. There is no sovereignty in this. There is no discipline. There is no self-mastery. A mind that cannot pause is a mind that cannot choose. And a mind that cannot choose is not truly alive. Nietzsche believed that the greatest strength is the ability to stand alone in thought, not isolated from the world, but independent from its noise. A mind that cannot be seduced by distraction. A mind that cannot be manipulated by urgency. A mind that cannot be pulled by impulses. This independence is not arrogance. It is clarity. It is the refusal to let noise define what deserves your attention. It is the discipline to decide what is worthy of your energy. And this discipline transforms you from a reactive being into a deliberate one. Epictetus taught that self-control is the root of all other virtues. Without it, wisdom becomes theory, courage becomes performance, and justice becomes convenience. Noise strips you of control because it keeps you externally oriented. You look outward for direction, outward for validation, outward for meaning. But the Stoic iron mind turns inward. Not into isolation, but into alignment. You choose intention over impulse. You choose direction over distraction. You choose clarity over noise. And this choice, repeated daily, becomes identity. A disciplined mind is not one that escapes noise. It is one that remains unmoved by it. A strong mind is not one that avoids discomfort. It is one that uses discomfort to sharpen perception. A powerful mind is not one that silences the world. It is one that silences the unnecessary. This is the essence of Stoic discipline. The ability to remain still inside while everything outside pulls, screams, and demands. Most people want peace, but peace without discipline is just avoidance. Peace without clarity is just numbness. Peace without sovereignty is just surrender. The peace you seek is built, not found. And it is built by training your mind to ignore what does not matter, to reject what does not align, to detach from noise and attach to purpose. This is the path of self-mastery. This is the path of clarity. This is the path of the Stoic iron mind. Your mind becomes what it obeys. If it obeys noise, it becomes noise. If it obeys purpose, it becomes power. This choice is yours every moment. Strength is not given. Strength is chosen. Discipline is not inherited. Discipline is created. And a mind that ignores the noise becomes capable of facing anything. Your transformation begins when you stop reacting to the world and start commanding your mind. The noise will not disappear, but its power will. The moment you stop giving it your attention, you reclaim your life. That is how an unbreakable mind is built. That is how discipline becomes identity. That is how clarity becomes your default state. And now you know the truth. The world will always be loud, but you do not have to listen. The Stoic iron mind speaks with clarity, not cruelty. It cuts illusions, not people.